was inspired by my journey reading All That She Carried by Taya Miles. This won the National Book Award a few years ago. Has anyone read this book? Oh, you got a new book to add to your reading list. It's one of the most fantastic books I have read in recent years. And I'm not going to go into what it's about, but I am going to read to you. So will you humor me? Daniel gets me. He also has it in Monday. Humor me while I read to you. This is Taya Miles. She says, "Our foremothers wove spiritual beliefs, cultural values, and historical knowledge into their flax, woolen, silk, and cotton webs. The work of their hands can lead us back to their histories and serve as guide rails as we grope through the difficult past." When I read that quote, I thought about Celeste Butler. I am so honored to introduce our registrar and curatorial associate, Susan Whisnant, and textile artist Celeste Butler. I'm going to turn the program over to them, but I just want to thank you for being here, for supporting Cameron Art Museum, and for being present with us tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome, welcome everyone. We are just thrilled to welcome you to Cameron Art Museum tonight as we celebrate the opening of the work of their hands, American quilt making. It's great to see familiar faces and new friends, and we just want to welcome all of you. I'm Susan Whisnant, registrar, and I'm on the curatorial staff. I want to start just by thanking the incredible artists and lenders and all of the people that made this exhibition possible. We have several artists here this evening, in addition to Celeste Butler, that we're thrilled to welcome. Bobby Fitzsimmons is here in the back. Is Hattie Schmidt here? We'll see. And is Ann Watson here? And welcome to Ann Watson. Thank you for being here. We'd also like to thank the multiple people who generously helped us plan this exhibition. September Kruger, Director of Lifelong Learning at CAM. Many of you know. And she is, in addition to all of her talents here, organizing and working with education at CAM, she's also an incredibly talented textile artist. So she was an amazing addition to the curatorial decisions on this. I'd like to also thank Bill Riker. He is the Global Director of Exhibitions at the Studio Art Quilt Associates, SACWA. And he was very generous in speaking with us and sharing a checklist and introducing us to textile artists that some of which we were familiar with and some were new, and many thanks to him. I also want to thank Kathy Lindenmeyer of the CAM board. I don't know if she's here this evening, but she introduced us to the work of Brittany Boyd Bullock. It's in the third gallery when you come in. Really amazing pieces. And Bobby Fitzsimmons and Ann Watson are also, in addition to being artists, are active with the Advocacy Project. And we want to welcome Ian Guest, the executive director down from Washington, for that, if he's able to make it. Okay, well, we will welcome him when he arrives. So without further ado, and we also want to thank Ann York and Jeffrey Schrager for introducing us to Celeste Butler. We're so grateful. Thank you. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce Celeste Butler. Celeste describes herself as a multidisciplinary artist, a quiltologist, and a storyteller. Based in Omaha, Nebraska, Celeste has worked on several community engagement art projects, celebrating the pride and culture of North Omaha, and collaborating with mothers who have lost children to violence. She's also developed a set design for the 2019 Union Fellow Liz Gree's opera, Whispered Like the Wind. Celeste has participated in school artist in residences, working with children at Nelson Mandela and Saratoga elementary schools, teaching the next generation the art of quilting and storytelling. In 2018, she created quilts in honor of Nelson Mandela for the centennial celebration of his birth for Nelson Mandela Elementary. Celeste lectures and teaches at Metropolitan Community College and led workshops at the 2018 National African American Quilt Convention in Lawrence, Kansas, where she had 2 quilts featured. Celeste's work has been featured all over the place, including the Washington Post, We Don't Coast, Omaha Inspired Living, and others. And her work is in multiple public and private collections. Welcome, welcome, Celeste.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I love that you describe yourself as a multidisciplinary artist, quiltologist, and storyteller, and that term, quiltologist, really captured my attention, and I'm wondering if you can tell us more about that and tell us how those roles intersect.
Good evening, everybody. I'm honored to be here this evening, and as I always start out saying, I stand on the shoulder of each and every one of my ancestors and bring forth the gifts that some were not able to come through, bring forward because of the atrocities and the things that have happened over time. And they left gifts with each and every one of us, and mine just happens to be, or one of mine just happens to be in fiber and textile art, and I'm grateful for that. The quiltologist was a term that evolved over time. When I first started labeling what I do, it was a quiltapreneur because it was a mix of because it was a mixture of the business side and the creative side. So I thought that was fitting. And then a friend of mine's, she said, she came up with the term and called it a quiltologist. And I like that because it was the next level from the quiltapreneur. And what it did was encompassed everything that I do into the lifestyle as a quilter. It's the theory of quilting, it's the lifestyle, it's how to live a healthier, more simplistic, sustainable lifestyle based upon how they lived in the past. They had a very simplistic lifestyle, and they utilized pretty much everything that they came into contact with, and they were not wasteful people. And I love that, and I wanted to incorporate it and always keep that incorporated into my life. So the terminology quiltologist is only fitting to evolve. Everything evolves, whether we want it to or not. So that's the evolution of where I am now. It's a lifestyle.
Thank you. So many of us have incredibly special memories of quilts. I think people just have such a personal relationship with textiles. I'm wondering, what are the first quilts you remember experiencing? What are some of your favorite quilts? And why did you decide to focus on this medium?
I didn't choose it, it chose me. Yeah, there's certain things in life we get to choose, and there's certain things in life that choose you. And quilting and fiber and textile chose me. Excuse me, from a little girl on, I was that one that was sitting at my mom's feet, at my godmother's feet, the women in the neighborhood. If they pulled out a sewing machine or had a needle and thread, anything that had to do with fabric, I was just totally absorbed for hours in it. I would play for hours in my mom's sewing room, touching fabric, feeling fabric, daydreaming about what I could make with it. And I love the process of how I can take fabric and manipulate it. And then I also loved how no matter what they touched or what they worked with it, because most of them had a little bit of nothing, but they always had beautiful homes, whether it was their curtains that hung in the kitchen or how they embroidered on the dishcloth or the pillowcases on the bed. My eyes was just in tune to every little detail if it had some type of thread or stitching or anything to it. And so what you see now today is that same little girl grown up, but still taking those same techniques and interweaving them into what I do pretty much every day. Yeah, that's it. This is just as simple as that. I love it. We came about this industrial age where everything has to be fast, fast, quick, quick. And it's something about the love that you get to touch it with your hands and your DNA is all over it. And then you either are using it for your own self or you're blessing somebody else with it. It's something about the transfer of that. There's an energy that transfers with that. That I touched it and now it's yours. Or I touched it and I released it to you. Or you touched it and now it's mine. The transfer of energy is important. And how we transfer that energy is equally important. Yeah.
That was really, really well put. I'm wondering if you can tell us a little more about your background and your background as an artist and where you're from and where did you learn quilt making and art making and who were the most powerful influences on you?
Once again, that little girl in my house, our home was full of an artistic family. My mom, I always say that she was a Renaissance woman. There were books everywhere that if we wanted to know something, we just went there and there it was to be able to read about it, educate ourselves about it. My parents believed in us educating ourselves. They did not have a formal or a vast education. I think my dad had maybe a fifth grade education, sixth grade at the most, because he was part of that great migration to come north. So they were in the fields working and everything. And I honor him as well because he was either the first or one of the first in his family that took that journey north so that I can be here today. And I don't take that lightly. The art was always in our home. It was just there. So to me, I was always looking. I'm the last of 7, so I was the one that was looking up to my siblings because they were so artistic. The way they just drew, just wow. It just totally grabbed me and touched me, and it's like I wanted to do it, but I didn't know how to do it. And I always thought that I needed to draw like they drew, and my pens and pencils still look like stick figures or something like that. So, but it's something about how my mind sees things, how this visual comes, and then I can just create it from here without touching a pen or paper. Even when in grade school, designing my own clothes, I can get the needle, the thread, the fabric, and the shape and design would come to me, and I can just sit there, cut it out, and then go sew it. So I could sew with or without a pattern. In grade school, I was just designing. And I'd like to say to anybody here that is any type of instructor or teacher or working with youth, just don't count them out. I oftentimes say all but one teacher never poured into me. They seen the talent I had at a very young age, but never once said, you know what, you probably could go to Parsons, or we probably could. They never did that, but 7th grade, I recall, and that's when in schools had home economics as well as wood shop. And I equally love both classes. But I remember the home economic teacher just disappearing every time it was my scheduled to be in her rotation of class, and then there I was left teaching the class. But I loved it because I always wanted to share the information I had because I was being taught at home how to do all this stuff. So when I came to class, it was just second nature to me to jump in there and just do it, and then to help somebody else do it. Sharing is important, and we can't continue to hoard. And that's where we are, even society-wise. We're hoarding and we're not releasing. We have a responsibility to share, whether it's love, whether it's our knowledge, whether it's how to do something. We got a next generation that's coming up after us, and a lot of them, they don't know what to do. If this country shut down right now today, how many of our young people say they know how to can? They know how to garden. They know how to just take a scrap of fabric and make a quilt so they can survive. And we need to be passing that information on, because they're not going to have time to be able to go sit in a workshop, and they're not going to be able to have time to go get a book or take a course real quick to learn how to just get basic survival stuff, clothes. So as much as we can, if we have that free time in our sphere, in our space, let's try to connect with some of our young people, because we don't know where this world is getting ready to turn to. And they need to know how to survive. They just do. We got it by default. Most of us got it by default because it was handed down to us. But we coddled this next generation, and we loved them so, and hoping that they would never see this day. But truly, here it is all over again in reverse. So, not trying to get on a tangent or anything, but just want to make sure that we're passing on what we know. It's critical. And they shouldn't have to go to university to be able to just get basic stuff.
I think that is the perfect lead-in to my next question for you. One of my favorite quotes of yours is, "Quilts are the original social media."
They are.
So I'm wondering if you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, quilts the original social media, because that's where we sit around and disperse information. Before all of this fancy everything that we have and all of this instant that we have of everything is at our fingertips, from the microwaves to the phones, we can talk to the oven from 20 miles away, tell it to start cooking, and we get home and it's done or almost done, you know what I'm saying? So we sat around, especially the women, we sat around in groups in each other's houses, in the basement of churches, and quilted, and we talked about our female problems, and we talked about giving birth, and we talked about our husband issues and all of those things. So that's how we communicated, and that's how we passed on information. And something very, and I put it through the test in I think it was 2017, and it was part of a community project that I worked on. And the core of it was, how can I get as many people from the community just to come and sit with me with a needle, something simple as a needle and thread, and we are in commune with each other, and we're having conversation. And I couldn't believe the people who showed up just to sit with me and to put some stitches in a quilt, and we had conversation. I wanted to take it back. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do that was because oftentimes, and especially, I can only speak for the inner city because that's where I was born and raised and bred, and that's my environment. So a lot of times we're passing each other, or we don't give eye contact anymore. We don't do that head nod one way or the other because we've got these fears built up, or these preconceived notions about what the next person is or what they might do to us. So I wanted to take some simple fabric, needle and thread, and ask people to join me. And what it done was, it broadened my spheres into my community. So now when I see those young people, and those young people see me, I'm not afraid of them, and they're not afraid of me. And they're protective of me now, because now they know me over a needle and a thread. It was just that simple. So it was just a simple experiment. I wanted to know, because we seen it done before, and that's how they connected. And sometimes we were vast as houses, and between all the houses were not stacked upon each other when we were growing up. You know, that we had bigger yards and bigger spaces, and sometimes it might be a little bit down the road, depending on if you were in a rural area or in more of a neighborhood connected area, that we went on top of each other like that. So how can I get us back together again? And literally, I have a walking group back in Omaha, Nebraska, and sometimes I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning walking, and I carry a big stick because I'm not foolish, okay? I still carry a big, so they call me the lady with the big stick. You know that lady? There's the lady with the big stick. But they know me, they're honking, they're waving. So it brought all that out. Once again, transfer of energy. But if I had walked and kept walking past them, they don't know who I am, so I'm protected. I don't know who they are, they're protected. We're both protecting space. They're honking, they're waving, Some of them ask, can they join me on my walk? But that's the quotologist. Because now it's not just about me, it's how I can connect in community. Whether you're from my community or not, how can we still make that connection? I hope I answered your question.
That's incredible. Yes, thank you. Not only did you loan us this incredible piece that we're going to delve into even more in depth in just a little bit, but you also loaned us a beautiful piece by a Jews Bend artist.
Yes.
And when we were walking in that gallery, we had a really interesting conversation, and you mentioned the term curated perfection. And one of the things that I love about those quilts is the asymmetrical, just the character of them not being uniform and just how beautiful and wonderful they are. And that term curated perfection, I had never heard, and you mentioned it, and I'm wondering if you can speak to that term, and especially as it relates to quilts and the canon and the development of quilts and the inclusion in the art world.
Yeah, Susan, so during the pandemic, I was part of, it was my second rotation as a fellow for the Union of Contemporary Art in Omaha, Nebraska. And when the pandemic came and everything shut down, most artists didn't have access to what you normally would have access to. So I didn't have a kiln to fire a lot of my ceramic works. I didn't have access to certain quilting supplies. Yeah, pretty much everything. So, but I still had an exhibit, a solo exhibit that I was still supposed to do at the end of that process. And so when it was time for that exhibit to go up, most of the pieces were partially finished, unfinished in some type of way. And at that time, I laid down the burden of curating everything to the level of just being so polished that you get to see it in its final state. So the terminology, curated perfection, came to mind, and I no longer wanted my work to be presented in a way that everything had to be pristine and totally finished and polished. I wanted my audience to be able to see unfinishedness. I wanted to be able to see raw edges. I wanted them to be able to see my flaws, because as an individual, as a person, I know I come with flaws. There's nothing, and I didn't want people to even look at me like that in no aspect whatsoever, because it builds a falsehood and a false narrative, not only about self, but about your work. That everything has to be just crisp and plain and clean and polished, and nothing can be out of line, and every edge has to be just taut and straight. That is so boring to me. I want my life to have some rough edges at the end of the day. I want them to be able to say, for lack of a better term, she really that up, okay? I did, okay? Because I want to own that too, just like I want to own the good things about me, okay? It's too heavy of a burden to carry to have everything just pristine and polished and perfect. Absolutely not. So if you see me over here doing something weird, just say, hey, she's Celeste today, or she's Celeste today, or that's another part of the quiltologist, okay? Because I gave myself permission to come with flaws. I gave myself permission. It takes such a burden off. And if you think about our kids, we have so much perfection stuck on them. They're scared because they're scared to mess up in any way, shape, form, or fashion. And that's too heavy of a burden to carry. I don't want it, and I hope you don't want it this day moving forward. Now that if you think about it in terms of curated perfection, who really is? Who really is? Stand and take a bow. I'm going to praise you. Stand and take a bow, please. I want to know what it looks like, because I've never seen it. I say we keep trying to act like it's there, but it really isn't. It's not. It's not. So if If it encourages one other person to release that burden and think about how we are trying to curate perfection, and it gives you if it gives you the chance to release it, you have my permission as well. I'm on that. I'm on that team. I'm on that team. Just release it. I feel so much better. That's where that is, and that's where that comes from. So the exhibit that did go up was the ceramic pieces. Some of them didn't get a chance to be fired. Some of the quilts did not get a chance to be stitched together, and the audience that came together received it 1,000% and then some, and it was beautiful.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that is part of the finished product, and I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about your artistic process, your inspiration. Some artists like to sketch things out and plan things. Others are inspired by a material. There's so many
always an interesting
ways
question.
that people get their inspiration, and I'm wondering if you can tell us a little more about your artistic process and how pieces go from being an idea or a notion to a project.
You watched the Transformer about half an hour ago. You tell them about that. The inspiration comes from a lot of different places. I don't have one format that I could say X, Y, Z, and I do it like that. And that's the liberty of freedom for me. If the only way that this world will allow me to have freedom is in my art and the way I get to explore it, that's the freedom I get, because in that I get to tell the stories, I get to dig through the stories, I get to do the research, traveling to different locations that spark curiosity. I'm the little girl that was last of 7, so I'm the one that was jumping fences and ripping my knees and my shins open and climbing and jumping off lofts and building my own skateboards and building bicycles from scratch. And so the freedom to explore will always be that little girl, and I never want to lose her. I never want to lose her, because everything that I get a chance to visually see somehow sparks something that I'm using an element of it later on in the work, or a word, or I'm looking at the fuzzy stuff on your shoes. I love it. It's just something that's nobody knows what's going through your head. You know what I'm saying? But that's a true creator. I don't know who you are, but just the way your hair is kind of sticking on, I love it. That's creation to me, and I can look at that and I can be inspired. That's the way my eyes shift, and that's the way my eyes move, and then it'll latch onto something, and somehow it turns into something like this.
Beautiful.
I don't know. I'm just grateful from where it comes from, wherever the it is, and I don't feel that I need to define it or try to box it into something that I can explain, because I can't. I spent a lifetime trying to understand that, and I don't. So I just give that space to where it belongs, and then I'm able to freely walk into this space, which I call my sanctuary, to create. And it's peaceful in there. It's very peaceful in there.
That is beautiful. You work with students and young people in schools, and I know you had an artistic bent very early, but I'm wondering, what advice would you give to a child or a teen who wants to pursue an artistic path? I'm wondering what kind of challenges you faced, and how you've overcome those, and you're sharing your quilt expertise and knowledge and love with the next generation, and I'm wondering what else you would want to tell them or share with them.
Get used to being told no a whole lot. No. And just say it to yourself, because you're going to hear it over and over and over again, and get used to people just not understanding what the gift that's inside of you. It's not, to you it looks normal, and to you it feels normal, and to the outside world, outside of you and what's going on inside of you, people think you're going stone crazy. Really, because it gets to be that deep. It makes sense to nobody because it wasn't for them, nor was it for them to really understand. Oftentimes, the person on the other side is for them to support it. And a lot of times on the other side, that person is trying to understand it. Sometimes to you, it's not even going to make sense. But you love it so, and it's such a part of your DNA, you keep going forth and doing that. So that's the advice that I can give them. If it's burning in you and you can't leave that thing alone, you're supposed to go and explore that. And then when you get there, and don't always look to like, I need to make it to the top. The top of what? Right where you are is the top. Because when you get to the top, there's another level. So you're going to always go back and keep editing, tweaking, and growing. I don't know how you find the top, because you're going to keep evolving. So be open to evolve, be open to explore, and above all, be open to share. Do not hoard and keep it to yourself. Somehow finding those ways to give back, but be open to share it with someone else. And even if you're not sharing your process of what you do, find a way to help that person the way they need help on their journey. That's the sharing. Because what you do might not be what I do and vice versa. But if I have some information that I've locked in on that can help you on your journey, I'm less than a person to not help you. And all it takes is just opening my mouth and say something, and then you can decide what you're going to do with that information. Whether you're going to use it, waste it, or just like I'll come back and revisit it later. But you have it in your toolbox now to be able to move forward in the next level of your process. But share. Find a way to share it.
Such an amazing generosity about you.
It's the simplicity of the quotologist. It really is.
I would like to sum things up with something else you said, another favorite quote. You said, quote, "I am a storyteller. I stand on the shoulders of my ancestors, and from them I draw a lot of my work because there are so many stories that need to be told that have to be told." What a powerful quote. And I'm wondering if you can tell us how all of that relates to this incredible work that you so generously loaned us, entitled Ancestors. We just would like to hear about the symbolism of each of the elements, the construction, just all that went into this incredible piece, the materials, the denim, the wood, the thread, and the laser cut crosses. And I'm wondering if you can just really share with us all of the layers of this piece.
The denim, the reason, you'll see denim repeated through a lot of my pieces. I love working with it because, once again, when we didn't have anything else, we had a pair of overalls or something denim. So bringing that element along in the process, to me, authenticates it back to a certain period and a time when that was considered a poor man's fabric or a poor person's fabric, or someone who just didn't have all the resources that someone, but I look at old photos of a lot of, especially the men that had the overalls and stuff, they had such pride when they wore those overalls. and had a button-down shirt and maybe a brim hat on. I remember my dad, and that comes from just paying homage back to him as well. I'm a daddy's girl at heart. I love my mom too, but I'm such a daddy's girl. And to me, to be able to still take that material still exists today. Denim. You think about denim and the core of that fabric as it stands in relationship to the United States of America and how it has stood the test of time. And even now, where you can spend in excess of $5,000 and more for a pair of ripped up jeans. In excess of $5,000 for some jeans? Who? God bless you if you can, but yeah. But here they are. Here they are right now in today's society. But that was the same denim. Even when they put them on, when they didn't have a little bit of nothing, they wore them with such great pride. And that's the thing that sticks to me and why you will see denim in lots of my fiber and textile pieces and how I incorporate back. I just want to honor that fabric of how the resilience of it. And I wanted to use it simulating in the flow of water, because to me, I can discharge the colors out of it to make it look like waves in the ocean. And from a distance, when you stand off of it, to me, that's what it represents and that's what it looks. No other fabric could do that, as far as I'm concerned, could give me that texture and that look of water. The centerpiece is wood, and I thought about the belly of the slave ship that housed the enslaved and held them in captivity. And if you look really, really close, all of those are laser cut bodies laying inside the belly of the ship as it crossed the Atlantic. And I just have to hold space for that. The red is the blood for each body that was either wounded or whooped or the things that happened to them, whether they heart bled for home, bled for what is happening and why is it happening. The brown silhouette that comes up and over, that's the divinity that somehow, even though we were going through all of those things, and it's something in this society that wants to eradicate us, but here we are today. You will never be able to eradicate what God brought forth. Just, there's no way. Try, and lots of damage has been done and a lot of hurt and pain, but something is also protecting us as well. And I'm grateful for that. So when you see the reds and the various shades of red and brown, it's this part here is the body's woven and breathing and bleeding, where you see the various shades of brown, and then it bleeds into red. The X's are the rays at the top, or divinity of somehow, to this day, we're still protected. And then the X's that are in the water is the ultimate honor. Each and every body that was tossed overboard and then claimed as lost cargo when they got to land, to claim the insurance and whatever they needed to claim to help with the wealth. But these are the bodies that lay in the ocean even to this day, in the remnants of their bodies, and somehow all the dialects from the different tribes that were lost and all the seeds that every mother would have gave birth to that were lost. So this is to pay on the excess are to pay honor to each and every one of those lives that were lost at sea. And one point in the exhibit we visited yesterday and the day before at the International African American Museum in Charleston, they said 1.8 million were lost. 1.8 million. 1.8 million.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So what I want to do is, if you would allow me, I have some extra laser cut excess, and I'm gonna pass it around. And for everybody that wants to take one out and find a place here to lay it, and in that lane of the ceremony, asking that somehow peace will find its way into peace and love will find its way into each one of our fibers and each one of our hearts, each one of our beings, and let the healing begin. We cannot go back and say XYZ didn't happen because we're here and the history states that it does. But what can we do today to move this thing forward so we're not continuously stuck in this vicious cycle of hate and destruction, hate and destruction, hate and destruction. So for everybody that wants an X to honor the 1.8 million lives that were thrown overboard or jumped overboard, feel free to take one. Thank you. And just find a place to softly lay it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
And just, if you just need to hold it for a second, just hold it, you know. Sometimes you just need to just hold it. That represents somebody's body. That represents a mother that was holding a child in her belly when they were thrown overboard. And those seeds that should be here today. Yes.
How did you make each one of these?
The X's, they're laser cut. They're UNMC, which Metropolitan Community College in Omaha, Nebraska. They have what they call a prototype lab, and they have laser cut anything that you can think of as far as innovation. I get the privilege to go there with a very small nominal fee membership that oftentimes somebody pays for me, and I'm blessed to have that as well. And I can go in there and create whatever I want. So on the laser cutter, I go in there and cut all of those. Yes. Those are the babies. There's 3 sizes. There's a larger size that represents the males. There's a medium size that represents the women, and then there are tiny ones that represents the babies and the seeds that should have been birthed but never did. And even if you don't want to lay it today, you want to come back another day and lay it, it's yours. It's in your possession. And treat it like it is a human body and honor it. Respect it and honor it.
Thank you, Celeste. This was an incredibly powerful conversation. Thank you.
Before we close, if I have a second, I want to recognize a very special individual, because a lot of what I do and even how I've come through this journey to Wilmington, and Wilmington has become my home away from home and my second family. I want to recognize and honor Annie York, if you don't mind standing. Please, please, can you stand?
with much more than missing this little quilting group. So anyway, it's been a journey, but oh my gosh, what a blessing. So thank you.
It has been a journey. So I want to share something with you. There's a second piece in the third room, the next room over, and it's called Crossing Over, if I'm not mistaken. And it's part of the G's Bin collection. And in, I believe it was 17, 18, and he invited me out to Wilmington and stayed with her. Can't remember how many days. And she took me to Selma. I'm from the Midwest. So Omaha, Nebraska is a little dot in the middle of the country. Most people don't even know it exists. So how does all of this that I'd never really seen before, how do I get these vivid visions? It's coming from somewhere. But even on that trip, and we went down to see the G's Bin collection and spend time down there, Annie originally brought that quilt for herself. 2020, I think it was, another one of my visits here to Wilmington. Before I left, she insisted I take it home with me and keep it. So I've been boo-hooing since that time. And then I'm thankful. I'm thankful for everything that you've done and how you are woven into my journey. You and your husband are woven into my journey. So being in Omaha, Nebraska, I always call it this little island. If I feel like I'm on an island by myself, what I do is not always understood in that environment. But when I come up here and I see so much of it, and then I see other artists that are doing the same, it lets me know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be. That's right. So, one more thing. This is proof positive that we need to see ourselves. We need to see that representation. We need to, they say in order to be it, you need to see it. So that's why I keep going forth and doing, because somebody else needs to see it. How do I get to see it in Omaha? I had to be it. And because I am, now other people get to be as well. So thank you. Thank you to each one of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We just appreciate you sharing this with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Cam. Y'all have been like on my winning team ever since I opened up the email and this whole process started. Cam and everybody here have showed me nothing but unadulterated love. Yeah. Fantastic. I like that. I like that. So guess what I'll be talking about when I get back to Omaha? I will be talking about Cam and your leadership and your direction that the museum is going in. And I can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, just that you welcome fiber and textile artists into this space so that the range, and you will see a range of various different quilts and textiles, just that you welcomed us into this space says a lot about your forward-moving process. And not to delete anyone else's work of how that came to be, but Fiber and Textiles is telling a historical story. It always has told a story. That's what denim did. That's what those fibers did. And that's why they're still here today. Fiber and textile art has that same impact when it's coupled with a story. So y'all doing something very, very special here, and I'm grateful for that.
Thank you so much, and we hope everybody gets a chance to see all the pieces in the exhibition. Thank you.